was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director, and both films received Best Picture nominations. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our moderator for this evening, Gus Van Sant.
Thank you. So, let's see, introducing Gregg Araki. This is a very big theater. We first met in Torino, Italy, at a very small gay film festival in 1987, and we both had very small 16mm films that we brought over, and they proceeded to screen them, but turned down the sound, and there was a narration going over the whole soundtrack. So it was a surprise to us with small cinema. And Gregg had an asymmetric hairdo and was chain smoking, I want to say Newports, and listened to the Smiths a lot of the time. And that's the first time we met. So let me introduce Gregg Araki.
Gus Van Sant, what? And here we are. Thank you everybody for coming out to see these two movies. Very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, that's a nice turnout. So I had a question. Where did you cast James Duvall?
I mean, it's actually it's part of the Jimmy Duvall legend that when I was writing Totally Fucked Up, Totally Fucked Up is actually my fourth movie. I had made Two of the People and The Long Weekend of Despair on 16mm for like $5,000 each. And then I made The Living End, and it was like $20,000. And my friend Marcus, that's where Marcus and he produced it. Actually, his mom basically wrote checks to the lab for it. And then I did Totally Fucked Up right around the same time. And so I had written the script, and Jimmy Duvall, this is before, I guess, many people in this room at their time, but on Melrose, there used to be this ice cream place called Double Rainbow, and used to have really good coffee, and I would sit there in the corner with my fun my new wave haircut, and work on my scripts in a very serious way. And I was smoking Durrells, I think, actually. And so I was smoking cigarettes and my angsty script, and there was this kid that would come in, and so Andrew Sperling is here somewhere in the audience. Andrew Sperling, stand up. Also, Gilbert Luna is here. Gilbert, please stand up. And is Rocco here? Rocco, stand up. We are absolutely heartbroken that Jimmy Duvall could not be here tonight. He actually got COVID literally this week, and he's so upset about it, but he's on FaceTime, looks like. Jimmy, can you hear me? Oh. He can't hear. This is like when you try to do these technical things. Oh, then you have the sound turned down, Marcus. Can you see the audience? Look at this. Rocco, where are you?
Right here, Greg.
Oh, Rocco! I was looking for you earlier. Anyway, oh wait. Oh, is that really was that really Jimmy, or was that just a fall? Yeah, so it's kind of heartbreaking, actually, especially for this screening. I remember when Marcus and KJ they were talking on the phone, And they're like, oh, we want to do the King of Opera trilogy, and we're going to screen it in the Mann Theater. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. But I had been in this theater like last year, and I saw In the Mood for Love here, and I just remember walking this theater. It was one of the first post-COVID screenings I ever went to. And I walked in the theater and holy shit, this theater's fucking amazing. And I would love to see Nowhere on this fucking screen. And so I literally told KJ, I don't care if it's 10 people in the audience, like I would die to see Nowhere on the Geffen screen. So he said, okay, like sure, why not? So Nowhere sold out this fucking huge theater, I don't know how, but the remaster of Nowhere done by Roundabout and the sound by Monkey Wing, it literally made me cry when I saw it today in the tech check. It looks gorgeous. It sounds like you've never heard it, and this fucking screen is incredible. It's literally next to the Palais in Cannes, the most spectacular screen I've ever seen. So, for people who are coming to see Nowhere tomorrow, if you're not, tough luck. But at least you get to see Doom Generation and Totally Fucked Up on this screen. But I want to thank the Academy again, Strand Releasing again, and my good, wonderful friend Marcus Hu again for making this possible, because these movies will never be seen like this ever. So, thank you. Anyway. Well, Gus had a question.
Yeah, so back to James Duvall.
How we met. So he was, I saw him at my boyfriend's here also, and he always says, when you do these Q&As, you literally never answer the question. You like talk in a tangent, like all the way around it, and then the question's never answered. So I will answer this question now. Jimmy Duvall used to go to this coffee shop that I wrote my scripts in, and I didn't know if he was an actor or anything. I also, it was interesting too, because this is the early this is 1990, 1991, so the whole LGBT queer thing was in a very different place. So I had no idea if he was a homophobe. He could have punched me, and so I just literally went up to him one day because I saw him with his friends sort of showing like pictures, like he was an actor or a model or something. And I remember talking to Andrea Sperling, that's how this all started. And I said, when we were casting it, we just kind of ran an ad in Dramalog and had random people, kind of actors come in to audition. And I remember I said, there's this kid at this coffee shop I go to that might be good for one of the parts. And so I just said, would you be interested? And it just so happened that actually I think Long Weekend was playing at AFI Festival like that weekend. So I said, like, this is a movie I just made and it's screening at AFI Festival. So I didn't seem like a porn guy or like pervert or something. I said, so I really am a filmmaker, quote unquote. And so I just gave him the script, and he just really responded to it and was like so cool about it. And that was actually one of the things about Totally Fucked Up. And the same with Gilbert Luna, who I remember we met Gilbert because same thing. Me and Andrea she was friends with Gilbert's roommate or something, and literally he was just sitting there reading a magazine or something, and we like went up to him and go, "Have you ever been in a movie before? You ever thought about it?" And so, and Rocco, I actually met. He was in a film class that I taught at UC Santa Barbara. And that's where I also met Andrea. And so we just kind of were this ragtag band of outsiders, and but one of the things about the making of that movie, again, long goddamn story, that inspired me to make the trilogy was working with these kids, the three I've just mentioned, Jenny Gill, Susan Bashid, and also Lance May. I don't know if is Lance here by chance. We can find it. They were all like so cool and open, and just being around them, I found it to be very inspiring and sort of creatively triggered me to sort of make the trilogy, because it gave me sort of hope for that generation. And anyway, I think, did I finally answer the question?
Yeah, part one. When you're writing in the coffee shop that James sometimes shows up in. Are you writing about your own experiences, or are you using it when you're casting? Are you including the lives of the characters that you're meeting and casting?
My movies, I always say they're not autobiographical, but they're very much me, and they're super, super personal to me. And like a lot of times, the things the characters will say, the movies are very much a document of exactly where my head was at and what I was thinking at those times, and I'm sort of in all of those characters. So.
Great.
I think I should ask Gus a question.
Well, one thing that you and I were talking about were the materials that we were using at the time to make some of the films, not Totally Fucked Up and Doom Generation, but just before that, the machinery that we were using to make them were often like handmade. Like I think I was explaining my mixing table to you to mix the sound with, which was an ad hoc sort of construction of a VHS player replaying through a mixing board and being re-recorded on my desktop. And you also, I had always heard that you created an editing table of your own, which you just dispelled that myth. But we were often using rewinds and movie scopes and sync blocks, and now we can just use our phone.
Yeah, I mean, I had this conversation with Rick Linklater too like a few years ago. That when we Gus and Rick and I, when we were all young whippersnappers, like some of the kids out here today, it was really fucking hard to make a movie. Like it was just physically really intense because just loading the cameras and you had to stick your hand in bags and the sprockets would rip and it's just a fucking nightmare. And then you have to drive the film out the lab. And we used to drive in Andrew's Jeep to the lab at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Just the whole mechanics of filmmaking were so much more involved, and then also the editing was like, I used to have one of those upright moviolas, so like an old sewing machine, in my closet in my little bachelor apartment. So it was just physically super, super difficult, and now everything is so easy, and with phones and laptops and iPads and everything. So I do think that the bar is like way lower in terms of, that's why places like Sundance get so many fucking movies, because you had to be literally, I felt like, kind of a little crazy to like want to be, like make a feature film. It was very intense and super, super time consuming.
And subjects that you couldn't see really in your own cinema, in your own country. It was like a void that you were filling with your own stories that weren't really represented in mainstream cinema. Yeah,
I mean, that's what was so cool about it. It was really just like, I mean, I've always kind of been under the mindset of sort of marching your own drummer, and I was raised on sort of punk rock and new wave music, so it was really just about, not about being mainstream or being like, pleasing everybody, or it was really just kind of expressing yourself and doing your own thing and, putting it out there and hoping for the best. And I feel like that was such a real, I mean, I just feel so fortunate because I do think that was a really golden age.
And some of our guides were, I think one of the main ones was John Waters, who's perhaps here tonight. And
John Waters, of course, like that's why it's so cool for me personally to have the trilogy playing this weekend, because the fact that it's the opening of the John Waters retrospective this weekend. I think it opens on Sunday. We went to the opening party last night. The exhibit, we saw it, is fucking fantastic. So everybody, please go see it. It will blow your mind. But what I've always said about John Waters is, it's like he was there before anybody. You know what I mean? It's just like before Sundance, before punk rock, before anything, all of this rebellion and all of this cultural shift that sort of happened in the 80s, 90s, beyond. It was, he was there in the 60s and 70s. And like, I mean, I always call him besides being a national treasure, he's like the North Star. Like he's just always been there and sort of the patron saint of art that is outside the mainstream and just, just for weirdos and outsiders and just doing this fucking crazy shit in such a controlled and a very visionary way. And I'm so thrilled to be that the trilogy's playing this same time when we're honoring Mr. John Waters, who may or may not be in this audience right now. I love you, John. My hats are always up to you.
And then in 1991, at Sundance, was a creation of the nuclear cinema.
Nuclear cinema?
You were front and center. And can you comment on that eventuality?
You can comment on the nuclear cinema. Well, yeah, it's weird because it's sort of like 91 was actually Poison's year, the Todd Haynes year. I think it won the grand prize. And then 92 was Living In, Swoon, Hours of Times. And then, Private Idaho was 91? But it wasn't a Sundance, I don't think, was it? Yeah. So it was but it was kind of, for me,
Like Derek Jarman was there.
Oh yeah, no, Edward II was there also. And Beaver Ruby Bridge, we actually saw last night at the John Waters opening, of course. She's the one that sort of coined the term nuclear cinema. And I was telling her last night, if it wasn't for the nuclear cinema, I really feel like, particularly The Living End, which is kind of the movie that put me on the map, wouldn't really have happened in the way that it happened, because if it was just this little 16 millimeter kind of punk rock, gay Thelma and Louise, which is sort of the way people thought of it, if it was just coming out on its own and playing in Angelica for a week or 2 weeks, it wouldn't have been the big deal that it was. But the fact that it was sort of couched in this movement that wasn't actually a movement. I mean, we all sort of met each other and knew each other and respected each other and loved each other and supported each other, but we weren't it wasn't like the French New Wave with just like Godard, Truffaut, and all those filmmakers sitting around a table going, we are going to revolutionize cinema and this is how we're going to do it. We were all just young artists kind of working in our own individual projects, but very affected by the AIDS crisis, and that was when ACT UP was happening and Queer Nation and all that. So it's young artists, it was sort of our way of expressing a lot of that kind of angst and turmoil. But Private Idaho, is that accurate for Private Idaho? Really?
Was it what?
Was it sort of in that same
period?
ACT-UP-y kind of Queer
Yeah, I think it was. It was.
Because it had it kind of existed in its own space.
Universe. Yes.
Well, I have I don't know. This is too.
I don't think I was young enough to be nuclear cinema.
Yeah, well. But definitely this sort of stylistic experimentalism of Idaho, I think, was very much a part of that. But it didn't seem to have the same, linked into the same sort of ACT-UP-y kind of political climate as the other movies.
Yeah. And Jarman helped a lot.
Oh yeah, Jarman was very, and Jarman's a big influence on me.
Yeah.
I actually, when I saw Doom Generation recently, it's like the end of Doom Generation is actually very Jarman-esque. The sort of ceremony of it, and the sort of when the strobe lights are happening and all that. I remember thinking, this is really homage to Derek Jarman.
Are there any questions out there in the audience?
You have to yell the questions.
Yeah, just yell it out.
There's one.
If you had a chance to, let's say, just do a whole new version of the films that are being shown today, do you feel like as if there'd be any big changes that you'd make?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, if you had a chance to make a whole new version of the films that are being shown.
Like a remake of one of the movies?
Are there big changes that you would make?
When I saw Doom Generation, which is screening next year, there's parts of Doom Generation that make me cringe a little bit because they're very much of the 90s and they are a little on PC for 2023, but I wouldn't change them. You know what I mean? Because they're very much the spirit and where that movie is coming from. But if the movie was updated to 2023, it would definitely need a little bit of tweaking in spots. And there's stuff in it. I mean, that's one of the things about the remaster to me is like, I'm a better filmmaker than I was in 1992, 1993. I just technically know more stuff about filmmaking now, and that's what was so great about the remastering is being able to go back and kind of polish them. And I remember I was telling the sound mixer when we were remixing Nowhere, when we mixed Nowhere, I think I just had one tool, and it was like loud. Like, didn't make it louder, I didn't make it loud. And so I remember in Doom Generation when we were remixing it, like all the effects and the Foley, and it's like blasting. I'm like, why is this so fucking loud? And you'll see it for people who are watching Doom Generation tonight. We did stuff like in the remix, the horrible like nightmare end scene. The effects were really loud, like the punches, the hits, the like all the violent stuff. And I'm like, turn it down, you know what I mean? And it's so, in a way it's almost worse, because it's so much creepier and so much more, because it's real. Like and that's what I mean, like, when you're a filmmaker, you know, and you just sort of, through the years, pick up this, oh yeah, this actually works better when it's like this, you know, like, where you just take out that breath in between the two lines, and the lines actually play way, way better. So you just figure that stuff out. And anyway, another long tangential answer to a non-question.
I mean, it's true that like when you're showing your film almost anywhere, sound systems are completely different wherever you go. So you're very surprised at, you know, the mix.
Yeah, this room sounds fantastic, though. When we were doing the tech check, I was like, wow. Even the back seats have a really cool kind of boomy effect to it that, particularly in the movies that are mixed in like 5.1, which is Doom Generation Nowhere. They sound incredible.
Anyone else?
Third one.
Yes.
So it was such an LA movie, which is awesome. What were locations like? I know it was a different time. Did you have free reign, or were there people like kicking you out? And like, what was the deal with all that? And how did you make like your home bases?
Everybody hear that? The question was about the locations and the sort of LA-ness of it, and you know, how did we secure the locations and what was that like? Andrea, answer this question. Andrea, get the answer. I mean, one of Andrea's jobs as a producer on Totally Hooked Up was, well, part of it was literally just, I don't know if you've ever been in a room with like 4 19-year-old boys, but there's a lot of fucking energy going on there. And they also eat a lot of fucking food, especially Rocco. Rocco ate half the fucking budget. Like literally, Andrea and I would go to the night, this is how that movie was made. For $20,000, we would go to the 99-cent store and literally just get like a wagon of like fucking cheapest shit and just put in a big pile. And Lance and Rocco, but you know, Gilbert was always just so, you know, just chill and sitting back. But Lance and Rocco was like tearing everything up. But anyway, Andrea, a lot of her job was literally trying to distract the security guards that were coming over to try to stop us from filming, because we had no permits and no nothing. Like literally, it was frequently just me operating the camera, and like that scene where Gilbert and Susan are in the mall and they're having a talk about sex or something. It was just us, and I literally remember Andrea like, I'm gonna take that security guard over there or whatever. So a lot of it was that. It was crazy times, and I kind of can't believe we survived it. And then Andrea went on and became a huge producer, and now she's rolling in it. And I'm just here, and I'm doing the same old shit.
There weren't no permits.
Nope. And the other thing was, I also used to keep a journal of like cool locations. Like I always wanted to have that kind of surreal, sort of David Lynchian, sort of weird, like landscape that felt kind of surreal and strange. And so I keep a journal of like, oh, this cool location, that cool location, like, oh, that weird mural, or this weird thing, like, and a lot of parking garages. I know for Totally Fucked Up, we shot in that parking garage. Because it was lit, and so yeah, we used to do. I would literally keep like a list of locations, and sometimes we get kicked out of one and have to drive
Like
everybody from
a huge billboard with a lot of lights. To
yeah.
write that down.
Yeah, but and the thing that was really cool, and again, why isn't Andrew answering this question? I remember we would sit in dailies, and sometimes you would look at the dailies, and you would know that we shot this shot with like nothing. Like it was me. Like there's one shot I remember of Jimmy where he's sort of, I think on Melrose, standing in an alley, and it's when he's like kind of in his downward spiral or whatever. And it was, I remember lit with the broken headlight of like Andrew's car. And the shot is fucking gorgeous. It's like Wong Kar Wai. It's fucking gorgeous shot. And you feel like when you do that, it's like we fucking really pulled something off. You know, as opposed to like later on when you have a DP and a production designer and all these people around you and the crew and we made a shot and it was pretty. It's like, yeah, but I mean, when you do it with nothing, it was really this. I remember at dailies were usually like that kind of experience where you're like, God, it looks fucking great. And it's just like magic almost.
Yes.
Is Totally Fucked Up going to be released again? I remember there was a DVD with commentary. Is it going to ever come out?
Marcus? Can we talk about no, probably not. There is, Totally Fucked Up is in 2K, it's not 4K, but are we going to have a different commentary track or something? I don't know. There's going to be some extras of the whole trilogy that will be coming out soon, but I guess we can't really talk about it. But that's a hint. Anyway.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite song from any of your, especially like the early ones where you use a lot of industrial music? Do you have a favorite one that you were able to
A favorite song from what?
From a lot of the early, especially the early songs or the movies where you use a lot of industrial metal type stuff. Do you just have a favorite song in a movie that you were able to secure the rights for? And then do you also still listen to the same kind of music?
I think the question about industrial music and do I still listen to industrial music and do
you have a favorite
song? I mean, honestly, any song that I can clear is my favorite song. I mean, it's like, music-wise is so crazy. And I remember specifically on Doom Generation, that Nine Inch Nails song actually, in the script of the Doom Generation, it says, like, this movie is going to have a double album composed by Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails. That didn't quite happen, but we did get Hearsay, which was kind of a big Nine Inch Nails hit, and we got the Porno for Pirates song, and Perry was also in Doom Generation, and that only happened literally both Perry and Trent had to come to private screening at Raleigh Studios. It was like, and I'm sure Andrea was there. And we had to have a private screening just for them because we paid like the shittiest fee ever. And it's like, I mean, I'm so fortunate. It gets harder and harder and harder every movie you make. But I always, just go, please, 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 please. I'm, this poor indie filmmaker, but I love this music, and it's so, so important to me. And because when I did Now Pop-Ups in 2019, we used the Nine Inch Nails song at the end of that fucking show too. And one of the producers, Greg, had used a Nine Inch Nails song when he did Magic Mike 2, and he's like, yeah, we paid a lot of money for that song. And but so, fortunately, at least, I don't know, have you had this experience where I just kind of, a lot of times will write letters and say, I'm just a struggling indie filmmaker, but your music's so inspiring to me, and you plead artist to artist, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like, I was supposed to have a Bjork song in my TV show, and it didn't happen. If anyone knows her, just tell her I'm still waiting.
Yes.
But you get that too, right?
What letter?
Like music, like at a.
I have written. I remember writing a letter to the Beatles.
Yeah, I don't think Beatles or Michael Jackson or whatever. But.
I said, when I was 12, I wanted to be a Beatle. And so they said, okay. Yes.
There's an obvious Godard, or maybe I shouldn't say obvious, but it seems to be there's a Godard influence and a little bit of a Nouvelle Vague influence. So when you are
In Totally Fucked Up?
yeah.
Well, it's just kind of a rip-off, basically. Frame for frame remake. It's definitely Mask and Feminine. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies, and I think it's in the description of the movie. I'm basically saying I want to make a LGBT teenage Mask and Feminine. And in fact, we quote some of the similar title cards are the same. The one about every 15 seconds or something, it's like a glimmer, a flash. That's like literally the same title as his movie. So it's definitely an homage. but yeah, it's very much more, it's structured like that movie.
Well, my question is, when you are, deciding on aesthetic, and then you realize, this seems to be similar to this other filmmaker. Does that make you self-conscious, or are you comfortable enough to lean into?
Everybody hear that?
When you see that your aesthetic is similar to Godard, for instance, do you acknowledge it, or do you steer away? Or
Well, how do you like? What's your relationship? Because some filmmakers, when they realize they're doing an homage to someone else, they want to run away from that, and other people are sort of comfortable leaning in or just making it an organic thing for their own aesthetic.
My answer is yes. No, I mean, this movie was very particular in the sense that it was very much inspired by Mask and Feminine, structured like Mask and Feminine. The whole thing about it being in 15 parts, that's the way Mask and Feminine is. So it was very Godardian by nature, but I knew that I was doing my own spin on it. So it was not like, I don't feel like I really copied the shots so much, but it was really the spirit of it. And also, Godard was quoted talking about making movies about young people, and that quote was very influential on me. And I can't remember the quote, but it was really just about how the idea, like the fluidity of young people, and how they're constantly changing, and they don't know who they are, and it's just like they're very unstable. That makes for kind of great cinema, because there's not, there's so many questions there, and that was very much central to Totally Fucked Up and the whole teen trilogy.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question. Yes.
How long did it take you to write your script for Totally Fucked Up, and how did you finance it?
So how long did it take you?
How long did it take to write, and how did I finance it? The writing took a while. I just usually, in those days, would just work on my scripts. I still do this. It's just like work on it, and then improvise it, and eventually it's just like, okay, it's done.